to... Good morning, everybody. Good morning. And welcome to Paris. It's so good that you're here and that you are on the boat with us here in Paris. We are honored to be here, and it's just the right time to be here in Paris right now. We have a full program for you. We have 3 different talk shows. We're going to talk about sustainability, climate change, hope, dreams for the future. And we have different moderators, we have different guests, and we'll take one talk show at a time. My name is Nico Grünfeld, I'm from The Alternative, and I'm one of the crew members that arranged this whole political talk show. It's an experiment. We never did it before, and we never had a political talk show on a boat in another country that we're from. We are waiting for a really inspiring lady called Madame Corinne Lepage, who is a former Minister of Environment and founder of a party called CAP21. And it's a pleasure to welcome Madame Corinne Lepage. Give her a warm welcome.
Thank you to invite me and my friends in this boat. Thank you to be here, and Paris is very proud to have this COP21. My generation has a very big, important liability, responsibility for you. And we are some people which which try since 30, 40, 20 years to change the economy, to change the mentality, to change the approach of politicians, to explain to the people, to the public opinion, what we have to do. But we don't win until today. Perhaps we have a good surprise in Paris. I am not sure. And it's very important that we mobilize the people and the young people on this point of the climate, biodiversity, new economy, new relations between peoples, a new view of the future, more cooperative, more equitable, more sustainable. And it's difficult, but I am optimistic. I am optimistic because it's beginning to change. It begins to change with the economic world, because they understand that they can make business with green economy. It changes with the financial worlds, which understand that the carbon risk exists, and it's important to change the investment. The politician peoples too begin to change, not all, but more and more. And the negato-climatist, skeptic, I don't know, skeptic, are not so important that in Copenhagen in 2009. I was in Copenhagen, and I was sick to see how the bad scientists decide to kill the conference. because that is the truth. They want to kill the conference and they obtain the results. That is more important. Because we are not well prepared to answer, we think that it was very little people and it was not very important, but it was a mistake, very big mistake. Today, it's not the same, because unfortunately, the climate change in the life, it's not the question of new generation, it's a question of our generation. It's not, I don't know where in the world, but it's in all countries. And people understand that. Even if the question of economic life, of money, of education, of health, social question are very important for a lot of people. But I was yesterday at the COI with young people. It was fantastic because the young people were optimistic, mobilized, and want to act. And now is not the time of speak, it's the time of act.
Right.
And act in each department of the life, each act of the life. And every people, everyone, you, me, we can change. And for this COP, it's the last words. 2 words. First. 2. I am lawyer, and a lawyer is very. It's impossible to. Come on.
Say in French.
To.
Shut up.
Shut up. Shut up, lawyer. First word. François Hollande asked me, it's 6 months ago, to work on a declaration of rights and duties of humankind. And I work with a group of jurists, but 2 NGOs, to write a declaration. It's a little text, 4 principles, 6 rights, 6 duties. Very simple. And we propose that the right for the humankind to live in a world safe and ecological sustainable is possible for the humankind and for the life species. 2, not only for Earth, 2 for the animals, for all the life species. And we explain too that it's important to understand the humanity as comment on dit ça, une chaîne, si quelqu'un peut me traduire ça. Chain between generations, past, today, and future. Because we have to on dit patrimoine, je suis désolée, j'ai pas le mot. Patrimony. To safeguards. And we have to guarantee the preservation and the access to the common goods, water, air, perhaps internet. Yes, because it's important. And it's the duty of the present generation to guarantee for the future generation the choice and the capacity to have the goods necessary to the life. This declaration would be presented by the President to the negotiators, not to be discussed, but to be in the pipe. And I hope that next year the text could be discussed in the civil society and too in the United Nations. And it's important that all the people, and especially the young people, can support this declaration. You can find it on the site Droits Humanités, droitshumanité.fr. It is in English, Spanish, Portuguese, Russian, Chinese, and French. And
everybody can sign it.
Yes, everybody can sign it, every organization. And cities begin. I was in the city of Strasbourg in France last week, and the mayor signed it. I hope that Anne Hidalgo signed in Paris. And this week, I am invited to explain the declaration to the mayor, which are in Paris. And it's important that you, each person, can support it and is the ambassador of this declaration. The first ambassador are the Scouts. 40 millions of Scouts are the ambassadors of this declaration. And if we have a declaration of right of humankind after the declaration of the right of human people, I think it's not the solution, but it's a new step. First one. Second one, and it's finished. I am very happy that you invite me, because I think that we have to work together in Europa, but in the world. I was a member of the European Parliament during 5 years. It was an experiment very important for me. It was difficult. I was first vice president of the ENVI committee. ENVI is Environment and Health. And it was very difficult with the lobbies. I have seen how they work, how they have a lot of money to obtain results. And it's difficult for the NGOs, for the green parties, for the young, to be so effective, so active. And I think it's very important for this reason that we can work together. I hope that we can cooperate for the future. I think it's very important. I am not a young lady, I am an old lady, and not very old, but and I want to transmit my experiment. I have the chance in my life to be lawyer, politicians, and associative person. And it's very interesting to compare the psychology of this world and to try to find, to speak together. And I want to transmit that because it's important. You win time, and time is precious. And for this reason, I hope that we can cooperate. Thank you for your attention. I'm sorry for my globish, but I hope that you understand my words.
The next 10 days, I will be in Paris blogging about all the alternative solutions to climate change and what we need to do. So, as I call it, mental infrastructure.
The scene is yours.
Thank you very much. My first guest is, where is she? Kate Fletcher, where are you? There you are.
Hey.
She's Professor of Sustainable Fashion at London Fashion Institute School. How would you say it?
It's London College of Fashion.
London College of Fashion. There you go. I'm very good to go straight ahead to the first question. Because climate change is the problem. The solution is the world that we would like to see instead. And all of us here, we're working for another agenda. We have some ideas and some solutions to solve these problems that we are in. So my question to you is, what does your perfect world look like?
I have to say, it's an amazing question, and perhaps it looks a little bit like the sparkle on the water. But also, I would say that I think that what it looks like is a feeling that we are part of nature, and for that feeling, for that thought to change everything, for it to change what we think, the way we are, also what we do and how we choose to live. So it's a completely different way than the way things have been organised before, and certainly the way things are organised in fashion. So it's a big change, and yet it's a very small difference.
Thank you. And what do you do what solutions do you bring to the table that will actually enable this world to happen?
Well, I'm a designer by background, and I suppose what we do in design is we devise new courses of action, different to that's gone before. And I spend most of my time trying to create visions for the future, visions that are coming from a different place, that begin to talk about different values and different ways of doing things. My most recent project involved me trying to imagine what would happen if we spent as much time focusing on how we can tend and use things as well as creating them. So what are the skills of usership as much as the skills of ownership, particularly with garments? And I talk to the public in almost 20 countries in 3 continents about what it means to use things and use things with skill, with capability, in a way that's a bit like the craft of making things, taking attention with them over time. And I think to figure out what that is at the core, is at the root of trying to figure out how we want to live differently, how we can do more with the stuff we've already got, how we can, dare I say, think about fashion in a world beyond consumerism, which is a huge challenge.
When we were talking before, you said that you had been out looking at ecosystems. You had been in close to Bogota, and you had found this sponge, right? And do you go out in nature? Do you find inspiration in the ecosystem, in the texture?
I have to say, massively. Maybe. So I grew up in an inner city, in a very poor inner city in the north of England. And where I grew up, there was no green at all. I don't know whether that exists in Denmark, but certainly in the UK, in Liverpool, there was no green as far as the eye could see. And yet, I think I always knew that this sense of nature completing me as a person has always been there. And I spend a lot of time trying to figure out what kinship is like, what the relationship between clothes and the natural world is like, and how it all makes sense. And yes, I spend a huge amount of time in nature. I spent over 2 weeks on a sailing boat in Scotland, looking at a cultural and artistic response to climate change. So this feels like a very good home for me. It's not nearly rough enough. We need more waves.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries.
Yes, no.
Hello.
We're a little short of time, so we're going to keep you up here on stage, and we're going to continue the debate and discussion. But my next guest is Andrea Heilskov. She's a writer, and she lives in the forest.
What?
You live in the forest.
Yes, I do. I live in the forest. I live in the wilderness. Well, we
Yes,
disagree on
we
that.
do.
But I live in the Swedish forest in a log cabin we built ourselves. We went, me and my family, 4 years ago into the wild. So I put on my fancy dress today and traveled my way down here. But I live in nature, yes.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
And what does your perfect world look like?
My perfect world is bloody and sweaty and teary and dangerous and alive. I think one of the major issues we have when we speak about sustainability and how to deal with climate change is that we set up some kind of paradise ideal, and I think that is something we need to be aware of as people working with climate change and sustainability in general. I think the perfect world is this world. I think we need to love this world instead of create some dream about a goal we someday might reach, because that's just the same kind of growth ideology that have brought us here in the first place, if you know what I mean.
Do you think that we risk being disappointed?
Yes, I don't think paradise exists. I don't. It's one of the major challenges I've had being a writer and someone who communicates about our lifestyle. I've been pushed towards a role. You know, if you live in the wild, if you live in nature, I bet you all have an idea about how you're supposed to be. You're supposed to hate technology. You're supposed to never eat Nutella. Seriously, people are very serious about this, and I have some Nutella just to let you know. And you're supposed to. There's all these kind of. You're supposed to be very happy and think positive thoughts and live in the now, and you know. I bet you have these ideas, and I've been like that has been a major challenge for me, just to kind of insist that yes, I live in nature, but I'm still me. Why have we made nature something different? There's some otherness in our ways of dreaming about the perfect world.
Right, exactly. And what do you do to make the world more sweaty and bloody and?
Well, I'm here. I'm here, and I, as an artist, as a writer, I make a great effort to try and communicate the pain and the difficulties we go through, having made this major life change. I bring art to the table today. I think that's something we need to talk about when we talk about sustainability, because often it becomes very technical and very scientific. And I think one of the things we need in order to fully understand the mess that we are actually in is the language of art. Because there are so many emotions. How do you feel about like 50% of all of the species are dead now? You know, how can I communicate that to you in numbers? That's a feeling. That's something we have to deal with. It's something we have to feel instead of just fixing it. You know, we have to feel it. So that's what I try to do, and that's why I'm here.
God, thank you very much. My last guest is Elodie Blangeot. You are the leader of a campaign called Jeudi Veggie.
Défi Veggie.
Défi Veggie. Okay, I do not speak French. Yeah. And you're a vegan or a vegetarian?
Yeah, I'm a vegan. Yeah, I'm the spokesperson for the French Vegetarian Society, but most of us are vegan. Even if we try to help people through the transition, which moves through vegetarianism or flexitarianism, all these steps.
And what would you like to see in the world? Would you like to everyone to become a vegetarian? Would you like to get these thoughts, these habits into school systems?
I would like this world to become more responsible. I would like people to be more responsible of their choices. When we act in everyday life, when we eat, when we move, when we buy things, these routines have have a big impact on the ecosystems, on people in the other parts of the world. So yeah, my perfect world would be a world where we can have a secure future, and I think that we need to be more conscious about the many consequences of what we do.
And how does a day in your work day, how does that look? What do you do? What do you do when you go to work in the morning to make this happen?
I'm a volunteer, you know, so I have a job which is not in my society, but is your question about what we do in our organization? Yes. So we mainly work on information and helping people in transition. So we try to give a thorough information about what it does when we eat meat, or when we eat local food, or when we eat organic food, or when we eat vegetarian or vegan food. So we try to give a very precise information about all these choices, because in France it's kind of difficult to inform on these aspects. There is a big myth about humane agriculture and local meat and all these things, and people and policymakers don't know much about the various impacts of these gestures. And we also try to accompany people through the transition, because it's one thing to know that you need to change, but it's another thing to change, to be able to do it, and it's not always easy. And as regards food habits, we know that the affective, the emotional aspects are very important. You don't only need to know that if you eat meat, this will have a heavy impact on climate. You need to know how to do in your everyday life, and it needs to be desirable. You need to want it. So we have this project called Défi Veggie right now. You can do it on the net, or you can do it in groups. And here my colleague Sabrina is near the door, and she accompanies groups of people. And presently these are groups of students, young students, who want to move towards a more vegan diet. And during 3 weeks they have many meetings. They have a conference about nutrition, they go shopping, they cook together, they do many things together, and at the end of the 3 weeks they learn something, and they are on the way to change.
And what is the response from people, you know, participating in this program? Do they actually go on and become full vegetarians, or eat less meat?
Some of them want to become vegan, some will eat less meat and less animal products, but many of them say that it really changed them, because they discovered a completely new way of life. They're very happy, they want to share it with the other people. And yesterday it was the party for the end of the 3-week sessions. So we saw them, they brought many things that they prepared. They were very enthusiastic, and they cooked many recipes. And it's very nice to see these young people, because they are the citizens of the future. So if we see that they engage towards a responsible move for climate change, that's very nice for us.
Thank you. Okay, Kate, what do you think? What do you think about when you hear Elodie talk about vegetarianism and how to eat? Can we incorporate that in the way that we think about fashion and our resources?
It strikes me that there's a huge amount of overlap when we're talking about habits, and perhaps we face a similar challenge. I imagine in France trying to encourage veganism is pretty much as hard as trying to encourage the British not to buy from fast fashion from Primark. It's probably as tricky a task. And yes, it's about habit, it's about culture, and it's also the relationship with fashion and food is extremely close in many respects. So it's tied in with who we are as social beings, as well as who we are and our personal health. And I think that there's a huge amount of overlap. So I think there's threads that are knitted together.
Yeah, very nicely. And what do you think are the biggest barriers? What is holding us back, you know, to make this change in our culture, in our society, in our way of thinking? What is holding us back?
there's so much that's holding us back. I mean, in the UK, it ranges from education. On the one hand, the promotion of a certain set of values. So, for example, consumerism seems to be wedded to an idea of success that people find very difficult to move away from. The only way that people can think of being satisfied is by buying more, and that's in the UK. That's absolutely normal. I think that there's also a poverty of imagination around alternatives. Very little attention is given to those things, and I love all of this stuff, which is, for me, speaks at the core of it, something that's sweaty and dirty and bloody and actually real life. And it's so much better for being like that. The idea that it comes clean, shrink wrapped, it's worse because of it. So linking it with real people and real stuff and actually what's going on outside your door makes life better.
Definitely. Andrea, what do you think is holding us back?
Comfort.
Comfort.
I think.
Are you comfortable in your house?
I'm comfortable. I'm out of my comfort zone right now, for sure. But I think even the people who want change stay within the same ways of dealing with each other, dealing with the world. I know I'm an activist, and I find often that in activist environments, it's the same kind of power games and hierarchy as everywhere else, and it bothers me because it's lazy. I think what's holding us back is loneliness and solitude and fear, and because of all these negative emotions, we stay in a framework that we know and that we're comfortable with. Even you, as progressive people and a progressive party, you probably do things in a way that you're comfortable with, and I think that holds us back. I think we need to be uncomfortable. I think we need to, strip naked and say, here I am, and I'm ugly sometimes. Be true and be real. And there's too much. Sorry, but I'm gonna speak plain now. There's just too much bullshit in the world, and there's too many lies. And as long as we keep reinforcing these lies and all of this, things are gonna stay the same.
What is the biggest lie? I mean, what lie do you not like? I mean, what is it that is triggering you?
I think we live in an age of a great separation. I think each of us here, in a way, feels separated from the natural world, from each other, and maybe from our own bodies, and that's why we try to maybe control or gain access to or connect with something through the clothes we wear or the food we eat. That's a way of trying to overcome this sense of separation. We try and dive into something and get to know it. But I think that as long as we keep it instrumental, it's not going to work. I think we need to work on a deeper level with this sense of separation that I think a lot of people have.
And Elodie, do you think that, like what Andrea said before, like that we have to be careful that we do not produce a romantic view of the world, that we do not, participate in this nature romance. Do you think that changing your way of eating, or do you think that you contribute to creating this like ideal? Do you think it's real? Do you think that people get in contact with their food in a way? Do they know what they eat? Do we know what we eat?
No, I think that it's difficult to make this connection because we live in a period of massive communication, especially from agribusiness. And yesterday I talked with a friend about meat in India, and I told her that India was maybe not the first, but one of the first beef meat exportators. And she was very surprised, and she said, "Oh, but I thought that cows were holy in India." But I said, yeah, maybe they are in religion, but people drink a lot of milk, so they have to do something with the cows. And yeah, I think that what we do is to help people get in closer contact with what happens, with reality actually, because advertisement creates a world which is completely disconnected from reality. So what we try to do is to show the various connections that are that link you and all the world around you when you eat. But we could do it in with many other subjects.
And the people part of your program, do they go out and visit farms, or do they go out and shop together, or what do they do?
We don't visit farms, but we try to communicate. We try to show, for instance, the movies, or to give articles, to help them get a more precise vision.
So through science.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. And what are people's reactions? Do they understand this? Do they feel it with their body, or do they feel it with their brain?
I think the brain is the first part of us to be connected with these subjects. We don't try to make everybody conscious because it's difficult, but we try to communicate to people who are concerned somehow. I mean, it can be people who are interested by organic food, or by climate change, or by their health. There are many ways to get in contact with these subjects.
How can other people help you with your missions?
Well, I think that the first thing that you can do is to help us share what we do. For instance, we have a petition, which is an international petition in French, English, and German, and many other languages. And it's addressed to the heads of state. We ask them to take measures in order to help the development of vegetarian alternatives. It's nothing very radical. It's just help spreading these alternatives. So you can do that, and that's fine. Yeah.
And Kate, how can people help you with your message?
I think an amazing way to help is actually to find agency within the place that you already are. So many of the things that need to happen are things that we're already doing, but perhaps all we need to do is to recognise them as valuable and important. And perhaps one of the key things is maybe we just need to think a little bit more about the sorts of questions that we're dealing with here.
What questions do you think that we should think more about? What should we ask ourselves?
Well, I suppose when I thought very, very simply of this of a question around consumerism, for example. So within fashion, we get tangled very, very much within ideas of consumerism. It seems that fashion really is cut in the cloth of consumerism. And then a friend of mine had a small pop-up shop. He had a rail, which he pulled out. He made a number of garments on this rail, and then people were sort of rocking up and saying, "Oh, that's amazing, how much is that?" He said, "Well, you can't buy it, but you can swap whatever you're wearing today for this piece on the rail." And so great. And then part of that process was, he said, "But before you do, please just write down a little bit about why you bought this piece in the first place, and then also and why you liked it." And so that process of just getting somebody to think for a moment about why they bought it and why they liked it stopped almost everybody from swapping, and they realised, actually, I really quite like the stuff that I've already got.
Should we go out? I mean, because what you're talking about is also how we design stores and how we design our cities and everything, because it looks like in a certain way, and we know that this is a storefront, and we know exactly how H&M works, and we know exactly how to move around there, and we know exactly how to go up to the counter and pay for our clothes, right? Do you think that we should force ourselves to go to other shops, other designers? Should we seek our clothes somewhere else? Our identity, should we seek it in another way that we do now?
I absolutely think that we should, but we shouldn't necessarily do it by buying things from other places necessarily. So one of the key things that we need to do is to figure out what fashion provision and expression will be like in other formulations. At the moment, it's only basically where you exchange money for a product and then you chuck it away after 6 months. So it's loads of different ideas and things around that. But I mean, designers don't just operate in a space where they're filling the world full of more. They operate in loads of different spaces, and it's those spaces that we need to support people to move towards and move into.
Absolutely. Andrea? Do you want everyone to move out in the forest? and build a house?
No, it's very funny
Or do you want to be alone?
I definitely don't want you to move to the forest, please. But no, it's one of the questions I'm often asked, you know. Why do you need to be so radical? Why did you have to do something that extreme? Can't we just do something on a smaller level, like change the light bulbs and bake our own rye bread and stuff like that? And yeah, definitely, you can do things wherever you are. I don't think this debate is about what can we do on a personal level. I don't think there is one solution, because we are many people and there are many kinds of solutions. To me and my family, it was a solution to boycott this model of society that we strongly disagree with, as a way of becoming more conscious about our choices. That was to us necessary. It doesn't mean it's necessary to you. You can like do an urban garden or design space collective, whatever. I think there's many solutions, and I think it's one of the things we can do on a personal level is just recognize that we can't find one solution to climate change. That's idiotic. You know, why should we find one solution, like one plan? That can't be done. We should have like a million plans and a million solutions, and everybody can contribute to that.
And what do people say when they come up and visit you? Do they want to stay there? Are they scared? Do they want to go home? Are they running away from everything? Or
Yeah, there's two kinds of reactions. There's crying.
You get a lot of guests just sitting at your table
to make
crying.
people cry, yeah. No, but that's what happens when you get out of your comfort zone. You know, you become scared, you become challenged, so they cry. And I hear a lot of stories about stress, about worrying for your children, not feeling that you can do anything, and recognizing that the situation is catastrophic, but people don't feel they can do anything. And I think that's very sad. It makes me very sad to think about. And the other reaction is, you know, people just coming. We had a guy who packed his car and just moved in with us until we told him to move. So there's a lot of dreams here that I didn't know of 4 years ago. I didn't know that there was such a huge longing in so many people. There's a lot of people who dream about getting away from it all. But the fact is that you cannot get away from it all, because it's in your head. This model of society is in our head. So as you say, questioning consumerism, that is a very valid point, because even when I bought a parasol from Jysk, and it was just like it was not my proudest moment in the wilderness, but that, you know, but it's just habits, you know, and you have to think about things all of the time.
Did you order it online? And that's my next question. Honestly, no, but it's a serious question. So how do you get your clothes? Do you make them yourself? Do you know?
We buy everything secondhand, and yeah. We do.
Okay. Are there any secondhand shops up there?
Yeah, if you drive long enough, we have a car. Yeah.
Right. Elodie, would you like to move out into the forest? Do you think you could be a vegetarian in the forest?
Well, I'm not sure I could be a vegetarian in the forest, but do you grow everything that you eat?
Yeah.
Yeah? Okay.
Not 100%.
But that would be more easy for me, because I couldn't kill animals, I couldn't run after the animals and kill them, but I could rather grow my own garden. I think I would be very happy to live in the forest, because when I move somewhere for the holidays and spend more time in nature, then I feel very strange when I get back to Paris, which is a big city. But it's also a city that I love, that I learn to love and to know. So that's something I also cherish. I wouldn't like to choose between the two. And I think that it's true that if we want to build a more sustainable world, then we have to move less and to have smaller communities. But the culture and the possibility to exchange with many people and to have all these cultures in a city such as Paris is something very precious to me also.
We will have the last 10 minutes before a break, and we'll finish up our first political talk show. We want to create a relationship with you guys, but also with the world that are looking from our social media platforms. But first of all, any one of you who wants to give a comment, an acknowledgement or reflection. So, try to speak up loud, and then you'll have the first word, Kim.
Thank you very much for wonderful presentations and a nice debate. I just want to put one idea or concept to the table, which I think is very important to us as progressives. I think the strongest motivator among people is fear of loss, of losing something. We were talking about comfort zones, but basically I think what we need to understand and what we need to tackle is people's fear of loss. So we need to make positive narratives of your experiences, of a multitude of other experiences that are pointing in the right direction. So bearing this in mind, that this fear of loss is far stronger than you should do the right thing.
Well, we just hear some other reflection and you'll have the time to wrap it up. Emma?
Hello, thank you for your insights. I got to thinking about something which I tend to think about a lot when we speak about climate change, and especially what the individual could do, which is that I feel that there kind of is a blind spot when it comes to social class, that it takes a lot of privilege to be able to buy sustainable clothing, to be a vegetarian, to be a vegan, that for some people it's not only about individual choice, but about something quite simply not being accessible if you're a single mom, if you're poor, that there are some structural things in place that makes this impossible for people, like buying cheap clothes, for example, is just not for some people a choice. And I'm also very interested in how you see possibilities for people living in poverty, people who are marginalized, could have access to not contributing to the destruction of the globe in a way that they do now, but they don't have a choice.
Another one? Yep.
Yeah.
You?
Hi. Thank you very much first. And secondly, I've noticed that one thing that people have a tendency of keeping is a Swiss knife, because it has many functions. And I would like to ask you to see, I'd like to ask you, whether you believe that polyfunctionalism is going to be more important in the future of consumerism.
Should we give them a chance to remember and the questions?
I will. Any else that have a question? Last question from Tobias.
Thank you. Thank you for showing, not only telling. It's a great inspiration. But apart from that, I'm curious, what other tools politically do you think we should use, apart from like leading and showing the way?
Cool. Now's your time.
Who wants to start?
Thank you. Amazing questions. The first one about it's like the maple, right? Fear of loss. I think that. Yeah, an amazing question. In fact, I was thinking about the culture of comfort, and this is the one thing that people find very hard to give up. And it struck me that actually perhaps what we need to do is to think about discomfort, and actually sacrifice is actually very attractive. Certainly at the run up to Easter, for example, everyone likes giving up chocolate in Lent. And maybe what we need to do is think about the politics of sacrifice a bit more, and figuring out how we can make that something that really begins to motivate people so they don't feel the sense of loss so much. Moving very quickly on to the nautical question, the nautic stripe tops question. I think you've got a great point. Many of the things associated with sustainability seem to be perhaps for the middle classes, and they coalesce around that. I would certainly say that certainly the ideas I was working on around using things, that doesn't take any money beyond the initial purchase to make it happen. These are things that are within the reach of us all, and they potentially can give us clues as to how we might live. I certainly think that this is important, that we need to figure this out and to begin to figure out ways to encourage everybody to be part of this journey. Perversely, it's only when the middle classes see this as attractive that it will be picked up by the media and then encouraged. But these things are already happening, and in fact it's probably the poorest people at the moment who have the skills of usership that we all need to emulate. So maybe we need to look to a different place for that. There's another third question. You've got about multifunctionalism. Often when you have a garment with many pockets, you only use a few of them. So not always is the idea that more is better. It's about figuring out what's just right. It's about the finesse. And so figuring out somewhere in the middle, I think, is the answer to that.
Yeah, there was one last question about political actions.
You've got another question.
Okay, political. What do you think we should do now? How can politics evolve?
I suppose what I think about politics is it's about all citizens. It's not just capital P, as we talk about in party politics, but it's about how we can affect the lives of all citizens. And perhaps that's the reason why you're all here, because you're expressing this political engagement. And I think that we can do that through loads of different ways. We can certainly do that through our garments, and I think that that's perhaps what we are going to begin to do, is we recognise that we have the power and the agency to do that.
Thank you, Kate.
Yeah. Does this work?
No, you have to turn it off.
Oh.
Yeah,
Technology.
Yay.
I'm gonna wrap it up by using your questions, the political perspective and all of this. I think I'm someone who tried to formulate a criticism towards the status quo, and I got slaughtered. There was a lot of criticism towards me and my family doing something else. There was words such as traitors, landsforræder, and there's very strong emotional words if you actually represent some active, non-compromising critique of the status quo, and I think that's one of the problems the alternative might have in the coming time, that you have tried to formulate a criticism towards the status quo, and you are maybe not, I don't know, I'm speculating now, but maybe not ready to take the hits that will give you. Do you know what I mean? That if you criticize, you will get slaughtered, you will get attacked, and I think that's a very interesting political thing to be aware of. Do I want the acceptance of the status quo, or do I want to take the battle? And I think a lot of what's going on in the political environment in Europe right now is taking the battle. There's a lot of people who are just formulating this criticism, and I think they should continue to do that. And I'd like to use your question to answer your question about laws. I'm one of the poor people. We live for under like 5,000 crowns a month. I'm like officially poor. The only reason I'm here is because I'm a writer, so I have some social credibility. I think one of the problems regarding this, it's your question actually that I'm just switching over to. One of the problems regarding these structural injustices is that you're not talking to the poor people. This is a bubble, and you're talking to yourself about sustainability. I know a lot of poor people, but there's a lot of poor people who live in the forest because they can't afford to live in society. That's why we live there, and we do everything ourselves. We build ourselves. We do some. I have friends who make their own garments, because we're poor, because there's no alternative. So I think politically you need to invite some of these people into the debate. That's one of the ways you can handle this, what did you call it, structural problem. Because a lot of things is happening underground right now, a lot of things. Really, there's groups on Facebook where people on social welfare are helping each other with practical knowledge about how to save resources, how to save food, how to reuse everything. There's a lot going on that I don't think you know about. And regarding laws, in the middle class, in the upper middle class, that means you, I see a lot of people who actually want to sacrifice and lose stuff because you have so much stuff. There's almost a desire among the people I know in this social class that they want to lose. And I think you could use that politically, just say it out loud, gå ned i levestandard. I don't know how to say that. Go down in living standards. Why not make that a debate that we actually have? Because a lot of people actually wants to go down in living whatever.
Like reduce your living standards.
Reduce your living standards.
Yeah.
Multifunctionality, I don't know. So
Okay,
thank you.
Yeah, and do you have yours?
Yeah, that's fine. So there were two comments that I found precisely specifically interesting and that I want to answer. First, this comment about the fear of loss. I would like to say that to me it's a matter of point of view, because when we change, representations play a very big role. And if you imagine that, for instance, living in a world where we will share flats and share cars and eat more local food you can see it as a loss, but you can see it also as a gain. And I think that we have to work a lot on images and representations, and imagination has to play a very big role. And I think that artists and writers have a very important role to play in order to build visions of the future that are new, that are different from what we have now, and that are desirable. That's what I really think, because this world in which we want to consume more and more is also a world of more isolation. It's not always a world that makes us happy, because this fear of loss precisely is embedded in this specific model, economical and mental model. Sorry for my poor English. I also wanted to address the comment about what are the political solutions, because it's true that individuals have to change, but we also have to change as a whole society. And it's very important for us to address also the collectivities. And you know that in France we have an old tradition of public services, which are maybe threatened by the neoliberal, sorry, it's not the right word, but the policies of liberalization and all these things. And it's important to us to talk to cities and to talk to governments. And there will be elections in December in France, and we specifically asked all the candidates what their positions were what was their position about alternative menus in schools and all collectivities. There was a petition launched in last July by a member of the parliament about a vegetarian alternative in schools and all public kitchens. And this petition got more than 100,000 signatures in a very short amount of time. So there is a big movement in France towards this vegetarian alternative, which will help all the communities to eat the same food in schools. I mean, people from the Muslim communities and from the Jewish communities and from the vegetarian communities. And it's also a very effective tool to help children, for instance, from all, I mean, even poor children, to have healthy food and to, I think we have to act also with the public services, the communities. I mean, that's a very important level to act also.
Good. Thank you very much, Elodie and Kate and Andrea. Thank you for your questions. It was really good. Give them a hand.